The Black Cat Lounge is sponsored by Beacon, a home for those who have a passion for filmmaking and the unusual. The Haunted Hinsdale House. Those who walk there do not walk alone. Paraware, apparel for the action-seeking paranormal investigator. Dragonfly art and soul for all of your magical, metaphysical, and spiritual needs. Mystery Control, your go-to feed for science, magic, true crime, the paranormal, and so much more. Para-Niagara, one of the top rated destinations in Western New York. The Black Cat Lounge is part of the Paraflix Entertainment Network. Everybody, Tim Shaw here. Thank you for joining us again tonight. We have got an outstanding show. I'm going to even say it's even beyond outstanding. I'm going to say it's almost illuminating. That's the way I'm going to say it. It's illuminating. I think you're going to have a great time just hanging out, and you're going to be able to go and really, you're going to open the door to some uncomfortable things tonight. And which, I think that's really something that we do need. I think that's something that we all have to go and face. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Kentucky vampire cult murders, and it's a very fascinating case, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But I got to tell everybody that Saturday night we were all out at the premiere of the Devil's Mark, Nick and Tessa Groff's latest film, and it was great. The Riviera was great to go and visit and hang out at, and it was just so wonderful to see so many of you guys there. I mean, I got a chance to go and hang out and just get a chance to, see people I haven't seen in so long. And it's so great because it was one of those places that pagan community was there, paranormal community was there. The what I liked is Buffalo's got such a huge independent film community. They were all there. And I'll tell you what, the movie itself is unsettling. It's very good. It's based on a true story. And I really think that when it comes out to general population, I've been hanging out in prisons way too much in the last month. But when it comes out for the general public, I think that everybody really is anybody that's interested in this topic is going to find that it's going to be great. Anyway, and the next thing I got to bring up, you guys, all you paranormal people out there, you guys know that I did a comparison between the our beautiful SB7s, the scanner boxes, and the Sam and Colby Spirit Box. And I love the Sam and Colby Spirit Box, hands down. But they went off the shelves really quick. When I did that comparison, they sold out on Amazon, and I think some people on eBay bought them and then hyped the price. Well, guess what? The price is back down. So if they're back on Amazon for $29, you can't beat it. If you're looking for a good radio to use for paranormal investigating, take the time and just buy that, because easy to use, got a built-in REM, got a light. I mean, it's a great multi-tool. I have to say that I really think it's great. So anyway, guys, tonight I have a special guest. I have an old friend coming on tonight. It's so funny because we never know where we're going to end up. None of us really understand what we're doing, what's going on, how we're going to go and how we're going to go and meet tomorrow. We don't know. We just don't know. So please let me just introduce my old friend. This guy is a true Renaissance man, a true absolute Renaissance man. He's an author, sought after speaker. He's a doc producer. I've seen some of his work. It's really great. And it's amazing because it's all the strange and unusual places here in the well, right now in the U.S. They may be going other places. I'm hoping for. And there's a book coming out, so we'll be talking to him about that. He is the publisher who runs Dark Moon Press, and he's a media personality, and he will soon be publishing Moi's upcoming book on scary stories that I tell my friends. So please, I'm just trying. Well, before I go on, I'm trying to think the last time I interviewed him. It's got to be 20 years ago, at least, maybe 25 years ago on the old Para X radio network. That's how long it is. And it was funny because off air, we were laughing about the color of our beards because last time we saw each other, our beards were a little bit darker than normal. So anyway, guys, let's welcome the one and only. I will use first his pen name because you'll hear me saying it during the night, Corvus Nocturnum. Eric, the man, Vernor. Welcome, Eric. How are you, brother? So good to see you again.
I am good. I was eavesdropping on your intro there. It's been 18 years since I was on your show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't even because this is Dark Moon Press's 20th anniversary was January.
I can't believe it. You guys have been around that long. That's amazing.
Yep.
That's amazing. And your successes that that have been coming on is just crazy. Now, I want to put a banner out. Dark Moon Press. If you're looking for great, unusual books, seriously, I am just going to tell each and every one of you, hit that website and just check it out because there are books there that you will not find anywhere else. And you'll also notice, all you guys here in the Western New York area, right in the center, you'll see that's Dan Kless's book on the Hinsdale House. So check it out. So anyway, Corv, let's talk a little bit about, something that can be a little bit unsettling to a lot of vanilla people out there. And it's funny because I remember when I first met you, we had talked at length, and the reason why it's just a little unsettling because people don't understand alternative cultures and alternative lifestyles. And
right.
I do have a picture. Well, before I go, let me find it here. I have a picture of a book that was one of the very first books that I've ever read in alternative lifestyles, and it's Embracing the Darkness in it. And it is probably one of the best books that I've ever read. It explains so much the reasons why people go into these alternative lifestyles, the reason why there's role playing, there's just so much to it. It's not just, well, hey, I'm gonna put on a fuzzy costume and walk down Main Street. This it's hardcore. And when I first met you, you were very much involved in the goth vampire community, right?
Right. I still kind of jokingly call myself an elder goth, but I do more of the all black suits, like 3-piece all black, black on black suit. You could wink and nod and say, "Oh, there's John Wick," but at the same time, the people have known me forever.
Listen, Eric, I know the arsenal that's in your house. So yes, you are very close to John Wick. You are closer to John Wick than what we really feel comfortable talking about.
The caveat, I'm not an assassin. I teach people.
I was just going to say, you're a firearms instructor. That's another reason why you're doing it. But every so often, Eric will put up a photo of a new and interesting weapon, and I look at these things and going, all this stuff is above my pay grade. Yeah, I'm used to pea shooters compared to what you're carrying. So, but let's talk about the vampire community, the lifestyle. I mean, what is it that attracts people to that goth, that dark, the lifestyle? Is it like a fad? Because when I've interviewed different people and I've run into different people, especially when I was down in New Orleans, I met some very hardcore people. And then I come back here and they have these vampire balls where just about anybody goes to Party City, the old Party City, and got some plastic fangs and they're vampires running around with a black bed sheet. So what is it that really attracts like the hardcore people?
Well, I will say it's kind of like the saying about if you ever talk to someone like Stephen from the Buckland Museum about not every pagan is a witch, but every witch is a pagan.
Correct.
So something
Correct.
along those lines. Not every goth is a vampire, but almost every person who claims to be part of the vampire lifestyle is a goth, at least at heart. So first and foremost, it's the love of everything that's dark and somber, not
Hmm.
because they're suicidal and depressed. That's the biggest misconception. It's because they have more of an understanding that life is precious and very short.
Hmm.
So live your life to the fullest and understand that we will die someday. The whole memento mori that you see on old tombstones
Yes.
is very much a part of their mentality of being very self-aware of their own ultimate end. So
Makes
they
sense.
they they have a love of everything that's dark and spooky, an appreciation for classic literature. Coincidentally, yesterday was International Goth Day, and today is Dracula Day. So
Dracula Day.
you know,
Yes.
Bram Stoker. I'm friends with Dacre Stoker.
You know what?
So
I love him, and I've interviewed him several times, and
I,
he gave me the best compliment because he said to me on air, he goes, "Oh my God, Tim, you've actually read my book," and I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, you're Decker Stoker. I mean,
yeah,
you are the heir of this estate. You know,
yeah,
of course I'm gonna go and I got a chance to meet him a couple times. He's just a wonderful guy, but."
yeah.
I often wonder because do you think, let me just ask you this, and I know that you're working on a project about this subject. Do you think a lot of this is a lot of the vampire community is a direct result of a pushback after or during the Great Satanic Panic?
Ooh. Um, I think that there is a correlation and a kinship between the two,
Yeah.
but I don't think that they're as connected. I am probably one of the few people that lives both lifestyles
Right.
because, as some of our you know not so old audience who've never heard of me, I am a reverend and a media representative for the official Church of Satan under
Right.
LeVay. So, and I'm in good standing because I had lunch with LeVay's last consort, Blanche Barton, a few weeks ago. So,
She's a fascinating person. I've read
she's lovely.
she's a fascinating person, and one of these days I'm going to track her down. I'm going to get her on the show because the from what I've just read transcripts from interviews, and I just sit there and go, wow, it's just amazing. That's sort of like it's sort of like when I knew Buckland during his Lilydale days.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the same thing. You get that one-on-one, that feel, and that's what's
Hmm.
amazing. Now let's get back.
Well,
Let's get.
you'd love her more because she wrote the biography of Anton LaVey.
Yes, I know. I know. I have it. That's another reason.
Yeah,
Not,
yeah.
hey, listen, I have kept up. I've kept up with you guys. Okay, it's tough.
Us guys.
You guys. That's the way I tell everybody. I keep up with you guys. But let's talk a little bit about uh, the influences of, let's say, pop culture and media on
Okay.
the
Hmm.
community, because you know what, yes, okay, we go and we can. When I went down to New Orleans, it was amazing. It was amazing, and I met some very dedicated, hardcore people, that have the full dentures, that they've had the work done. They are just really, they live it, they feel it. It
Yeah.
is it's in their DNA.
Hmm.
But do you feel the farther away from like these centers? Now I know Detroit's got a pretty big community in that area, and there's certain areas across the U.S. There's community, but I started to see uh, I listen. I've seen a lot of Lestets running around. I've seen a lot of people
Yeah.
like that. Really, it's almost like they're not true goths. They're more just pretend role playing. Do you
Mm-hmm.
think that the influence of Anne Rice on the community was good or bad? And the reason I'm asking this is because I'm building up to why other people, what makes other people go and just embrace it so tightly.
Well, I think Seattle and New York were the bigger birthplaces of the vampire lifestyle. But Anne Rice, most certainly, when interviewed as a book came out, and definitely amped up when the movie came out
Mhm.
um, for New Orleans. And
Yeah.
with the Casket Girls and the Saint Germain story, if you ever go down to New Orleans and bump into Boutique du Vampire and talk to Marita,
Yes.
she'll fill you full of stories about all of that. New Orleans was a epicenter for the strange and unusual vampires, voodoo, witches, the whole bit. It's unlike any other city except maybe Salem.
Hmm.
You will never find anything other than those two cities in the entire country that encompass the macabre more.
I agree. And tell everybody before we go on, tell everybody about your doc process and your book that you've been working on about all of these wonderful places that you visited.
Okay, so Eerie America Travel Guide of the Macabre was originally published 13 years ago by Schiffer Publishing. Myself and my cohort, Kevin Eads, who comes from a lawyer mentality, he loves to travel and he likes paranormal, the old classic Hammer horror films. And then there's me. Um, I was on a work vacation because I don't really take vacations, doing an art gallery showing in Philadelphia. And I went into the Mutter Museum, and the place just fascinated me. So, if people don't know, it's a medical oddities museum in Philadelphia. So I got all excited, and on the way back home, I was telling the star that hey, there's got to be more places than this. So we started shooting the shit and looking up places on our phones at rest stops, and it just sort of grew. And when I got back, I talked to Kevin, and he's like, "Hey, let's do a book on it." And I'm like, "This is going to be awesome." So the book came out, and we were disappointed, just like some of the readers were. I know you've got other
I have a
friends who
copy.
put
Yeah,
films, yeah, and
yeah, I know.
the feel of the book was there and the heart was there, but they chopped it up so bad to cover the cost of printing something high quality, which I don't regret them for that. But half the material was missing, and they did not do it justice to the way the level Kevin and I thought it needed to be. So
I
fast
agree.
forward 13 years, Kevin and I are redoing the book, and it's
Right.
so much material. So many new places have come up in the last decade that some of them were even this year. Fans are still emailing me to this day, new places we need to put in there. That it's insane. There's over 1,000 locations instead of the 150 that we had in the first draft. So the silver lining is it's going to be an incredible 5 book volume, full color, 8.5 by 11, broken up into 5 regions all over the United States. And I'm going to launch it close to Halloween. And like every
Fantastic.
couple of weeks to every month is the next region is going to come out because I'm printing them in high quality.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. I'm excited about the project. I was excited about the project years ago, and we all know what it's like working with other publishers. So
Yeah.
we all know what happens, but it's going to be great. Now let's get back to what attracted this. Well, okay, let's talk before we go into the vampire. I want to just kind of put a little ground, just play a little groundwork here.
Mhm.
Uh, Rod Farrell. Let's talk about him. Now, he is considered the leader of a vampire cult.
Yes.
So, let's talk about what kind of a childhood he had. It's your book covers this childhood, and and I had done, me, I do my homework, but for some reason, it was just the way that you brought it out. It was just horrendous. I mean, it was just horrendous what this kid went through. So tell everybody, lay the groundwork of his life.
Well, of course, I had heard about him on Geraldo back in the 90s, like so many other people, and then kind of forgot about it. But in May of 2010, Sandra Starr Gibson wrote to me on, if you'll forgive me for saying so, the old MySpace platform.
Showing your age, Eric, yes. Showing your age. I had one.
Yeah. So she gets a hold of me and says, hey, you're heavily involved with the vampire community and you've had a bad life. Maybe you'll be a little more sympathetic to my son's plight, that they were fighting to get him back into court, which they eventually did. I'll go over that. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I want him to tell his side of the story through me. And she's like, I've got newspaper articles, I've got his handwritten letters, I've got artwork. I'll send all this stuff to you. And, I made her sign an not NDA, but some sort of affidavit saying she won't sue me for what I write because I tend to have journalistic integrity.
Right.
And I'm covering my butt. So she and I both have copies of this signed agreement that she won't come after me based on what I said. And I did try. I swear to you, I tried my best not to slam her, but I did have to be honest. And I wrote an entire chapter on Sandra Gibson is no angel. And I did the same thing for his girlfriend, Heather Wendorf. I did the same thing. These people are not.
Oh my God. I got to tell you what, it was eye-opening because especially with the mother, I had always heard about the mother. I was, and of course, I mean, you do your due diligence and you find out little bits and pieces, but the way that you were able to go and present it's stomach churning. Tell everybody, I mean, what kind of a person she was.
Well, let me recap briefly the introduction because like you, I had to do a deep dive in who I'm talking about and who's, connecting me to them. So I wanted to draw a parallel and explain to the reader why it meant so much to me to put this book out. It wasn't just 30 years later shock value, because if I had been doing a cash grab, I would have jumped on the bandwagon 2 decades ago when it was more of a known topic. But my mother was a stripper. She was into drugs and similar era, not too far, distant in age and everything. Been through the system, was abused. So there was a lot of things about Rod's life and who his mother was versus who mine was. There were so many parallels in Sandra and my mother and me and Rod. There's no wonder he turned out to be this dark, gothic individual, because life is bleak and drastic, but at the same time, I saw the positives and the romantic, embrace life, because as we talked about earlier about what goth culture actually is, I accepted that and used it in a positive fashion and did my deep dive in embracing the darkness to share with other people who were, confused and not understanding. Well, Rod went the opposite direction. He got into drugs. He was cruel to animals. He went into an animal shelter and butchered, puppies, and he killed a kitten just because it scratched him. This kid was a monster, but his mother was to blame for it as much as he was.
Well, didn't the judge even come out and say that the mother should be on trial too?
Yeah, pretty much, because she actually was arrested and charged for soliciting a 14-year-old boy, the younger brother of the guy who supposedly embraced Rod Farrell, Jaden Murphy's younger brother, Jamie. So Farrell's mom was young when she had him, and that's no excuse. I'm a teen mom and I'm into drugs and rebelling against my parents. Well, they claimed that Rod was molested by her father.
Right.
So this kid had everything stacked against him from birth. But he, unlike me, I tell people to this day, what differs between me and Rod is choice, accountability, responsibility, and look at how shitty your life is and choose to do something better
Exactly.
because of it and help others get through and help explain and understand. That's why I wrote the other books that I did, is to try to bring awareness to people that, hey, you may think the kid coming out of Hot Topic is a freak, but he's not. So
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. This kid had a horrible life. I'm not condoning anything he did at all. He should have, not done drugs. He should have sought other better people in his life to, influence him. But based on what I do know, there weren't many options in the small Kentucky hick town he grew up in.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: what was it that really attracted him to the vampire culture? Because now, I mean, let's we do know that at the time they had a lot of video games, they had all these other things. And I mean, look at me. I never thought I'd grow up to be Kolchak the Night Stalker. You know what I mean? And I never thought that. But what was it that really attracted him to that?
Two things primarily. Vampire the Masquerade that his mother introduced him to. And if you remember Dungeons and Dragons,
Yep.
Satanic Panic, and The
Yep.
Masquerade, all the senators and people on the media were, Oprah and Geraldo were all panicking and screaming for the
Yep.
sensationalism
Yep.
that these video games and rock music are making the kids do these horrible things. And I don't believe that, because I like the same music. I love the artwork in The Masquerade. Tim Bradstreet is a fantastic artist, so I'll just say that. Um, so don't blame the media and the entertainment and Anne Rice's books or her movies making this kid a homicidal drug addict maniac that beat two people to death with a crowbar. Nobody else did that.
Right.
In my journey of all this writing and being uh, in criminal justice myself as my college degree, I actually got to meet and interview Kenneth Lanning, who's a retired FBI profiler.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware.
So
Yeah.
he
Wow.
he he influenced a lot of my research, and he's like, no Satanist has ever been, guilty or of any major crime like this. You guys are cool in my book, and he exposed the whole SRA as bullshit. Um, and pretty much anything other than Rod Farrell and a few other minor remote cases. I won't say minor; they're horrific. But as far as how many of them occurred, for the millions of us that grew up with that stuff and loved it, and it was a part of our lives, us elder goths and people in the vampire culture and Satanists and witches and all that, we weren't going around doing the things that he did or Ramirez or stuff like that.
Exactly. No, this
But
is
his mother did influence him. She introduced him to the games. He became infatuated with Anne Rice and her work. So he saw himself as an outcast. He had pale, skin. He was skinny. He grew his hair out long, painted his nails black. Stereotypical, goth kid. He painted weird occult symbols all over his bedroom. Had chains hanging from his walls. The kid embraced it. But the thing is, unlike most of us who did it as an aesthetic because it was beautiful, his stuff was dark and twisted as a reflection of his warped mind.
yeah.
And his mother was an influence on that. She brought him to these rituals with friends of hers, and you know, and I don't want to catch any flack from pagans because a lot of them are my close friends and all
Yep.
that, but the stereotypical Hollywood variation is what these two lived, and they were a single mother, young kid. She wasn't a mother to him. She was like his best pal. And I tried not to say it in the book, but some of my research showed that a few of the things that were said about Rod and his mother's closeness was a little disturbing in what they implied.
Oh, I have to tell you that as the more I researched this, the more it almost seemed as is as if it was incestual, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
And
why would she go after that 14-year-old kid
right,
that was, friends of his sire if she wasn't inclined that way?
exactly. I
But
have
I'm
to,
not going
I
to get
agree.
sued. I'm not going to get sued by putting it in the book because she's getting a copy of it.
Well, that's, you know what? I think it's an honest, I think it's that you did an honest portrayal. And I think that it is so important that we do use these things as honest portrayals because there's too much out there that becomes sugar coated. And, and let's face it, when we start talking about serial killers and we start talking about, people like we were talking before the show, Ed Gein or Dahmer and all that,
Yeah,
a lot of it becomes almost passe. It becomes like sugar coated sometimes. And I don't think that you've done that. I think that you've given it. I think you're giving the reader an honest look at all of the mores and all of the things, the set and the setting of what may have caused this. Now, let me ask you: was he charismatic? And the reason I'm asking about him, was he charismatic, is because he had followers. That
yeah.
that
He
went with him.
definitely was. In a lot of outcast groups like that, where everybody is a reject of their other high schoolers, because I was beat up and made fun of as a kid. I was
Same
bullied
here.
constantly.
Same here.
So, so I think that all the people that flocked around him saw him as a strong, confident leader that would protect and save them. And he used their gullibility and naivete and their respect for him and twisted it to where they would do anything he said because he was to them conflicting reports among the different
Right.
five kids is they were terrified of him or they were in awe of him or they were afraid of what he would do to them or their parents if they left his cult or and maybe some of that's true to some degree. Maybe they were scared of him. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not them. you know
But the idea is that this is something that's normal because whenever you start looking at anything that has to do with the teenage angst,
yeah,
especially at that age, you have a leader and then you have followers. And the reasons why they follow him are reasons of control,
hmm
reasons of awe. And fear. Those are the three things that people always look for in a leader, especially at that age. And because he was different, he
yeah,
went out there and he espoused it. He actually believed everything that he had told them more than anything else. And he was an amazing manipulator.
yeah.
And it's just amazing. Now let's go to the murder. Let's kind of fast forward to the murder. What happened? What happened? And who do you feel was? And you notice I'm bringing you in on this one. Who
Yeah.
do you feel was more to blame for instigating the murder? That's the best way I can describe how I
Okay.
get that
Yeah.
question.
I will say that I despise the author Aphrodite Jones, who wrote The Embrace, because she admitted she took artistic liberties when she wrote her book. She painted Heather in this white dress on the cover, that she was this
Yes.
poor girl that Farrell twisted and turned into, what he was. And no, no, not at all. Uh, Heather and Rod were kind of on again, off again in a relationship. And she came from a well off family. She was the freak of, those kids. She was rebelling.
Mhm.
She got grounded because she racked up thousands of dollars worth of phone bills. And back in the 90s, that was a lot of money. So the parents set their foot down. They grounded her. They wouldn't allow her to do anything but write to him. So that pissed her off. And she was allegedly, and I'll say it because I've talked to some of the kids who, well, they're adults now, but, kids at her school, she would go around saying, and even ask her sister, what about killing mom and dad? And she said that she was abused, and that triggered Rod because of his claim that his grandfather molested him.
Right.
So I think she poked his buttons and got him to, become enraged. And, you know, she she drew him a map, or a friend did, of the Wendorf house, explaining it'd be easy for him to come rescue her. He had this hero complex to come save the damsel in distress sort of thing. So his goal was to take his little group of cult followers to a cemetery, had his little blood ritual, get themselves pumped up. He took a whole bunch of LSD, and they hopped in a car and then went to, Heather's place, but their car broke down. So, you know, him and Scott, the other kid, went into the house while the others were sitting out in, the vehicle. The girls did. So they supposedly didn't know what was going on, but I call bullshit on that. And because if he was that familiar with her, why did he need a map? Why would she have drawn one? There's so many different things that just don't add up. The police later would interview her, and the questions they ask and her answers. There's no transcript out there online. I had to find the videos on YouTube and hit pause every few seconds and type it out. So myself and Dr. Catherine Ramsland, who's a famous professor and media personality as a forensic psychologist, agrees with me that Heather was fully culpable, but she walked. Money, power, and influence in the family. I'll just put it at that.
Yep.
So yeah, Rod comes into the house. Scott is kind of hanging back. He doesn't really want to do anything. He's kind of freaked out. Rod's high. He picks up a crowbar to defend himself, he says. And he finds that Rick Wendorf is laying asleep on the sofa. And he goes into this fit of rage and beats him, where his skull is fragmented. There's pieces of teeth across the room. Well, the mother was in the shower and comes into the kitchen, grabs some coffee, and then sees Rod coming into the kitchen with a bloody crowbar. She screams for him to get out, and Rod claims in an interview that he was going to just let her live. He just wanted to get the car keys and some money, and then they would continue their journey with Heather and then run to New Orleans because he was infatuated with, Anne Rice's book where all the vampires were in New Orleans. So, in his delusion and rage and being high, he didn't like the fact that she started yelling at him. She threw hot coffee at it. Her body's pictures are in the book, so that'll tell you. And then he leaves. The kids get picked up, and there's a whole chapter on how they got caught and the result of that.
But let's talk a little bit about the aftermath. Let's talk about what it did. Now, what do you think? What did it do to the community at that time? Because I want to talk a little bit about what Rod is doing, how he's working a little bit now. But
okay,
what was the community like at that time? After, let's say, immediately after it. Now, this is a photograph, a famous photograph of everyone in, not every, I think it's everybody, either at an arraignment or during a court.
Yeah, I believe that was their first court appearance as they were being arraigned for their charges.
But I mean, okay, now if you look at the girls, they look like innocent high school girls. And at the time, I'll be honest with you, they look like kids I went to high school with.
Yeah.
And that's what's scary. They look like everybody else. So what was the community like after this happened?
Well, they were horrified. It was a very small town full of, uptight Christians in like Kentucky, your stereotypical small, I don't know exactly how small it was, but you kind of get the picture. It was not too far from like Deliverance, so yeah. This was a it was a horrific shock to the community. You're talking small town, a sheriff with maybe a couple of deputies and a bunch of trailer parks and a small like Mayberry-ish set in the 90s. And this was right before the Blade movie came out from Marvel. and a bunch of other things. It wasn't even allowed in Blockbuster in that city because they were so mortified. It's kind of like you and I were talking earlier about the community in Ed Gein's town. That's pretty much how they
Right.
treated everything that was going on in Murray, Kentucky.
Now let's talk a little bit about Rod Farrell today. And what was his sentence? And I know that he had, you can tell everybody about the him having, I think it was a retrial or he got a resentenced. You can tell, but what is he doing now? I mean, and where is he? And what was the outcome of this? I mean, first of all, was it a regular trial? Was it a full trial, or did they plead? Did they plead out?
They all pled guilty, but there was quite an expansive court proceedings before they got to that point. And I will say that he, as history goes, Rod Farrell was also famous not only for the nature of the crime and the so-called vampire cult that made the headlines and media shows all over the place, but the fact that he was the very youngest person ever to be put on death row until that was overturned because they said it was unconstitutional to execute somebody who was 16.
Right. Because I mean, everybody
escaped the noose.
Assumes that he was over 18. This guy was only 16 years old. That's what makes it scary.
Well, one person, one of the girls was 19. Everybody else was 16. So,
wow.
Yeah. Dana received 17 and a half years. Scott Anderson received 2 life sentences because he was in the house. They called him an accessory, even though he didn't actually do anything. He was standing there in shock. He never touched either of the Wendorfs. He said that Rod just went crazy. They all pled guilty in 1998 to avoid the death penalty. And they credited 22 years of his sentences. So with 40 years, that puts him at 2032 as his release at age 51. And he was 16 at the time.
That's scary. That's scary.
So, yeah. So since they couldn't execute Rod, they decided to give him life with no chance of parole. But in, I want to say, let me see my notes here. April 10th of 2020, he went back for a retrial. I'm not sure how he pulled that off, but that's partly why I think Sandra wanted me, his mother wanted me involved in his story to kind of act as a sympathetic ear,
right?
To somehow maybe act in part of his defense. I don't know. I don't know if they were just using that out of me. That was her plan all along. But the book came out after the fact, so the fact that I've been so busy in writing 60 other books in between, I kind of got put on the back burner until she reached out to me again with all the stuff that I mailed out to you and a few other people of the original drawings by Rod. So I guess the silver lining for me writing it when I did is I wouldn't have had these extra couple chapters at the end if I had finished it earlier.
So it actually worked out well for you because
you're
it's
a full picture.
I think you do. Let me share something with it. This is a gift from Eric to me. This is something that, and you guys know that I do have my collections. These are priceless to me. And I have held off till I was able to go and interview Eric before I go and I put these behind glass. This is a photograph of Sandra and Rod, and he was 4 months old. Look at this.
Yeah, it's a real Polaroid. It's not a copy.
It's amazing. This is an amazing. I can't thank you enough. But what
if you notice the handwriting on it, that's actually his mother's.
Oh, really?
Scribble. Yeah, that's Sandra.
Look at that. That's amazing. That is amazing. This is his original artwork. And you know what? I am looking at this, and I hate to say it, but I drew stuff like this when I was his age. Early on, like 16. Look at that. I mean, he's actually got talent. I mean, this is actually a beautiful piece.
Yep.
And let me show you this. This gives. I'm just going to come right out and tell you, this gives me absolute chills. This gives me absolute chills. This piece here.
Uh-huh. That's
You
a
guys,
photocopy, but it is, from her that
yeah.
Rod sent her a copy of it.
This when I looked at this, I don't know. I don't even know what to even say about it, because this is amazing when you just I can't even I don't even know what to say about it, because it took my breath away. And
Yeah, he definitely can get his mental state by reading some of those lines.
it's crazy. I read that and I'm just like, you know what? And listen, I don't want to pull the psychic medium card, but I held that and I looked at it and I read it, and it's almost like bang, you can just walk into his brain and you can
Mhm.
see exactly what he was doing. I mean, it was just amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. And you can get a good idea of what is and what he and what he does. So I'm just sitting here just going, this is a person now who is quote unquote rehabilitated. Would you consider him rehabilitated? And the reason I'm
Um,
asking, because this is something that, a lot of people, because I followed the Manson. I remember the Manson murders, the Tate LaBianca murders as a kid.
mhm.
And I followed that case my whole life. And, you think about it, now, are these people really rehabilitated? Or do you think that perhaps he could be considered on the road to being rehabilitated? It's a
Well,
hard one, isn't it? Listen,
to some,
I'm pulling some
yeah,
hard
you
questions
ask,
for you, Eric.
you don't go light. I've got a bachelor's in criminal justice, and I studied, incarceration, all those things. I'm friends with Catherine Ramsland. The Dr. Ramsland is a forensic psychologist,
Hmm.
and we agree with the circuit judge in 2020 ruled that he's going to spend the rest of his life behind bars because this juvenile offender's crimes are so heinous, and he has had a history since then of
Hmm.
30 years being locked up, of lying, of hiding weapons, of being just as crazy to his cellmates. The only thing he did recently to try to make himself look clean cut is he took some courses in, you know, waste sanitation so he could get a job when he got out, and he got married while he was in prison. And this crackpot that was drawn to him for some reason left the very first review on this book on Amazon
Oh,
with this
really?
long. Yeah, yeah. Go on Amazon and look up the review on this book, and it's her writing about how much of a horrible person I am. That Rod himself has heard about this and didn't authorize a book to be written about his life.
But this is public
And
knowledge, and his mother is
yep,
the one that
she came to
started the
me.
ball going. Yeah.
Yeah,
How-
but they're not talking to each other. Sandra told
Oh,
me that herself a couple
oh,
weeks ago.
really? Oh,
Yeah,
really? I did not know that.
yeah, I've got emails as of 3 weeks ago from Miss Gibson personally, saying that, well, they wanted some sort of cash money grab out of it. They thought I was getting money for the book, but I told them I wasn't, and it was all just given to you. So they're mad at her because they are not going to get anything out of it, and they're trashing me on, you know, well, there was a social media post, and uh, she said some shitty things and unfriended me because I didn't even know we were connected. But yeah, Farrell's wife hates my guts.
Well, I mean, listen, it makes sense that it's got something to do with monetary problems, because let's face it. First of all, a criminal can't. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. A criminal cannot go and profit from his crime. Second of
Correct.
all, so how is she going to get a piece of it? But although I can see her going after the mom, trying to
Yep.
go and get something from her.
And then she could put money in his commissary or whatnot.
Well, that's true. That's true. But it's like, it just, I mean, it's, I don't understand it because so many people have to, how many people have written about Charles Manson? How many
Yeah.
people have written about Ed Gein? How many people have written about the Night Stalker? All these people have been out there, and the BKL or whatever, the killer, I can't think of his name now, up in the Pacific Northwest. How many of these people have written
Hmm.
books? This is all part of public knowledge. It's all part of it. I mean, the transcripts, you can get there. You can get all the transcripts. I've accessed the transcripts to Defoe's uh, uh, Defoe's trial from the Amityville
Yeah.
Horror. So, I mean, how can they go and do that? But I think we live in a society that says, "Hey, let's try." And there's always a
Yeah.
lawyer or somebody that's willing to jump in if they can, if they can smell a little, smell a couple
Well,
bucks.
to be honest, I truly think that the reason behind this is that I had a direct connection with his mother
Yeah.
over years, and she supplied me with personal things of his that he got pissed off about. I
Oh,
mean,
I
the
see. Yeah.
letters, the letters, and the photos. I'm actually capturing who he is and part of his life, and he's getting nothing for it, but me condemning him for it. And he didn't like it, and I didn't come to his rescue to testify, to help free him because I put it out after the judge's ruling because the judge is like, yeah, he's incapable of rehabilitation.
Yeah. That makes sense.
If I would have sided with them, I would
Yeah,
have
I
said
agree.
keep him locked up.
I agree.
So
Hey, we're
yeah, he's
almost out
just
of time. Eric, we're almost out of time already, dude. This is fascinating. This is fascinating. Hey, before I let you go, let me go and just put up this banner. Anybody that is interested, tell everybody about some of the titles that you have and all of the unbelievable authors and the books that you have. It's just amazing. I have known you since you just started off, and now what do you got? What do you got? About 3,000, 4,000 titles? You got quite
feels
a
like it.
few now.
I have 60 something titles of my own. I've got plans for 30 more in the next 5 years.
Wow.
Um, we're up to over 70 authors and 500 books with more coming out. I mean, it's just, we've exploded in the last 2 years. So I've made a major comeback that, yeah, when things got rolling again, we just started pounding out titles of everything from true crime to paganism to self help, sci fi, you name it, we're putting it out. And um, we have everybody like from you and Daniel Klaus from the Hinsdale House. He wrote a book on his location. You know, these are people sharing their stories, their life experiences, their knowledge, and we're reprinting classic books like John Dee and you know anybody in the paranormal or esoteric world. Um, you know, since it's Bram Stoker Day, as we talked about earlier, I'm reprinting Dark Moon Press's edition of both Frankenstein and Stoker's Dracula.
Man.
So you'll find if you go to darkmoonpress.net. Not everything's on there, of course, because we're rebuilding the site from scratch. But there is a link on there in white text with an underline. If you click that, you can download our most recent catalog.
Amazing. Eric, I've got to go and we got to cut now. But I got to tell you what, this is great. You're going to be back on. We're going to be talking again, and stay on the line so I can thank you properly off the air, brother. This has
Thank
been
you.
a thrill. I'm just going to tell you right up front, it's been a thrill. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to come on the show because this is first of all the gift that you sent me. These are sacred gifts to me. So I mean, it's amazing. But just for you to go and talk about such an amazing case and to have clarity and I have that deep understanding, that personal deep understanding about the subculture, that to me is worth everything. The understanding you have. So stay tuned, buddy. I'll be right back. Guys, was that not an amazing? He's amazing. That's all I'm going to say. He's amazing. I loved everything about it. And All I'm going to say is watch Dark Moon Press, go to their website, and go and learn more about everything that he did. So, guys, as I always say, be kind to everybody that you possibly can. Understand, just get out there and do what you can for preservation, for charity, and do yourself a favor. Don't crowbar anybody, okay? Don't take a crowbar and get anybody. So take care, my friends. See you next week. Lots of blessings. And I can't wait to bring you more true crime, occult crime, because this is fascinating. Ciao, babies. Bye-bye.